Top HFY stories, Power Armor meets Magic School Adventures. The dropship hummed as its engines brought it down into the valley of Yarethil. From the viewport, Cadet Karen Michaels could see the sprawling campus of Arcana Celestialis, the most prestigious magic academy on the planet. It was like stepping into a fantasy novel, tall spires, glowing runes, and students in flowing robes casting spells. But Karen wasn't here for magic. He was here as humanity's first exchange student. Striding off the ramp, Karen felt the weight of eyes on him. His Mark V Vanguard power armor gleamed in the sunlight, a masterpiece of Earth's engineering. Its metallic surface was etched with kinetic dampeners and HUD-linked cameras, giving it a sleek yet imposing look. The blue and gold insignia of Earth's intergalactic alliance shone on his chest plate, a stark contrast to the natural, almost ethereal surroundings. He adjusted his helmet's audio feed as he approached the school's headmistress, a tall elf named Kalindra Vera. Her lavender eyes narrowed slightly as she took in the armored figure before her. "Welcome, Cadet Michaels," she said, her voice sharp and melodic. "I must admit, you're different from our usual students." "Thanks for the invitation, Headmistress Vera," Kieran replied, his voice distorted slightly by his helmet's speakers. "I'm here to learn, just like everyone else." A snicker came from a group of robed students nearby. One of them, a broad-shouldered boy holding a staff, muttered loudly enough to be heard. "Learning? Behind a tin can? Let me guess, no magic where you come from?" Kieran turned to face the boy, his armor's servos hissing softly. "No magic, just science. Want to test it?" The students fell silent. Kieran's HUD tagged the boy as Rylus Windflame, a high-ranked student specializing in elemental magic. The heat signature from Rylus's staff suggested it wasn't just for show. "Enough," Kalindra interjected. "Mr. Michaels, you're here as a representative of your people. Let's not start fights before orientation." Kieran raised his hands in mock surrender, the servos whining slightly. "Understood, Headmistress." #### The first lesson, Magic and Technology. Later that week, Kieran found himself in Applied Evocation, where the students were learning to channel elemental forces. The goal was to summon fire and direct it at a target dummy across the room. For Kieran, the challenge wasn't summoning fire, it was explaining why he couldn't. "Magic doesn't exist where I come from," he explained to the skeptical professor, "but I've got tech that can replicate it." The professor, an elderly dwarf named Garrick Stoneforge, grunted. "Replicate magic, eh? Show us, then." Kieran smirked beneath his helmet. Gladly, he raised his arm, and the gauntlet split open to reveal a plasma emitter. With a flick of his wrist, a concentrated bolt of superheated plasma shot forward, obliterating the dummy in a single, fiery explosion. The room went silent. Even Rylus looked impressed, though he quickly masked it with a scoff. "That's not real fire, just a trick." Kieran shrugged. "A trick that works." #### Rivals and allies. Over time, Kieran began to understand the nuances of magical theory, even if he couldn't perform it himself. Meanwhile, his classmates started to see the value of his technology. When a rogue spell caused an alchemy lab explosion, it was Kieran's armor that shielded the students from harm, and when Rylus challenged him to a duel, Kieran used his suit's adaptive shields and tactical AI to predict and counter every spell. But not everything was about proving humanity's worth. Kieran found an unlikely ally in Zara, a shy half-elf with a knack for enchantment. She was fascinated by his armor, and together, they began experimenting with combining magic and technology. Zara enchanted his suit's power core with a mana conversion rune, allowing it to recharge from ambient magical energy, a breakthrough that astonished even the faculty. ###The final test. At the end of the term, the students faced a trial, a simulated battle against a summoned Hydra in the Academy's enchanted arena. While the other students relied on their magic, Kieran's suit became the team's anchor. He drew the Hydra's attention with his plasma cannon, tanked its attacks with reinforced armor, and coordinated the group's strategy using his HUD's tactical overlays. It wasn't easy. The Hydra's heads regrew faster than anticipated, and its venom began to corrode even his advanced alloys. But in the end, it was Zara's enchanted power core that saved the day, fueling Kieran's suit for one final, devastating attack that reduced the beast to ash. ###A new chapter. As the semester ended, Kieran stood on the academy steps, looking out over the valley. He'd proven that humanity could hold its own in a world of magic, not by competing with it, but by finding ways to work alongside it. Headmistress Vera approached, her expression unreadable. "You've shown us much, Cadet Michaels, perhaps more than we expected." Kieran smiled beneath his helmet. "And I've learned a lot, too. Magic and tech aren't so different, when you think about it." With that, the armored cadet turned and headed back to the dropship, ready to bring humanity's lessons to the stars, and maybe a little magic, too. Hashtag top HFY stories, Power Armor meets Magic School Adventures, Part 2. The trip back to Earth didn't last long. Just a few weeks after his return, Kieran was summoned to the Alliance's Central Command, where his debriefing took an unexpected turn. Instead of winding down, he was given an urgent new assignment: return to Arcana Celestialis. Reports had surfaced of unusual phenomena across the magical realms, spells failing inexplicably, enchantments unraveling, and ancient magical artifacts going inert. The magical community was in chaos, and somehow, Earth's cutting-edge tech might hold the key to solving the mystery. Back to Yerethil. The dropship landed at Arcana Celestialis for the second time, but this time, Kieran was greeted with wary respect rather than outright skepticism. Zara was waiting, her robes lined with intricate new runes that she proudly explained were infused with human-inspired stabilization patterns. "Glad you're back," she said with a warm smile. "Things have been weird." "Weird how?" Kieran asked, scanning the campus with his HUD. His systems immediately picked up faint, erratic energy signatures in the air, like static interference on a radio. Spells fizzle out or backfire, some enchantments just stop working altogether, even the professors can't figure it out. "Sounds like a job for tech support," Kieran quipped, though his mind was already racing. Investigating the disruptions. Kieran's first step was to set up a network of sensors across the academy grounds. Zara and a few curious students helped him install them in key locations, their magic-enhanced perception complementing his tech-based analysis. The data revealed an alarming pattern, a ripple of anti-magic energy originating from deep within the nearby Whispering Woods. The woods were forbidden territory, teeming with dangerous creatures and ancient wards, but the headmistress, desperate for answers, approved a small expedition: Kieran, Zara, Rylas, begrudgingly, and a handful of skilled students. Into the Whispering Woods. The forest was alive with danger. Kieran's armor detected movement everywhere, shadowy figures flitting between the trees, predatory creatures stalking the group from a distance. Zara's magic kept a protective barrier around them, while Rylas's fire magic cleared a path when needed. But the deeper they went, the stranger things became. Spells grew weaker, forcing Zara and the others to rely more on Kieran's tech for protection. His armor, unaffected by the magical disruptions, became the group's lifeline. The HUD picked up an enormous energy signature ahead, a ruined structure buried in vines and moss, pulsating with the same anti-magic frequency they'd been tracking. The source of the disturbance. The structure turned out to be a forgotten relic of the old magic era, a time when magic was wild and untamed. In the center of the ruin stood a massive crystal, cracked and glowing faintly. It pulsed with chaotic energy, disrupting the ambient magic around it. "It's a destabilized mana core," Zara whispered, her voice tinged with awe and fear. "But I thought these were just legends." Rylas scoffed. "Legends or not, we need to destroy it. Destroying it could unleash an even bigger wave of anti-magic." Kieran interjected, scanning the crystal with his suit. "It's like a reactor meltdown waiting to happen. We need to stabilize it." "How?" Zara asked. "Your magic, my tech, together." Magic meets science. As Zara and the other students channeled what little magic they could muster, Kieran worked quickly to rig his armor's power core into a makeshift stabilizer. Using Zara's guidance, he calibrated the core to harmonize with the crystal's erratic energy signature. "Ready?" Kieran asked, sweat beading under his helmet. Zara nodded, her hands glowing faintly as she prepared the final rune. "Do it." Kieran activated the stabilizer, and the crystal flared violently. For a moment, it seemed like it might shatter, but then the light dimmed, the pulses slowed, and the chaotic energy faded into a steady hum. The group let out a collective sigh of relief. The aftermath. Back at the academy, the restoration of magic was met with celebrations. Kieran and Zara were hailed as heroes, and even Rylas begrudgingly admitted, "Maybe tech isn't so bad." But the mission raised more questions than answers. Why had the mana core destabilized in the first place, and why had it gone unnoticed for so long? Kieran suspected there was more to the story, and the headmistress confirmed his fears. "This was no natural occurrence," she said, her tone grave. "Something, or someone, did this, and it's only the beginning." A new alliance. As Kieran prepared for what lay ahead, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Humanity had proven itself not just as equals to the magical realms, but as partners capable of facing even greater challenges together. And he knew one thing for certain: the combination of magic and science wasn't just powerful, it was unstoppable. To be continued. Top HFY stories, Power Armor meets Magic School Adventures, Part 3. The revelation that the mana core's destabilization had been deliberate set off a whirlwind of preparation at Arcana Celestialis. The Academy's leadership scrambled to investigate, while Kieran, Zara, and a select few were quietly tasked with uncovering the truth. Whoever was behind the attack had a deep understanding of magic, and perhaps even Earth's technology. "This isn't just about magic," Kieran said during a late-night strategy session with Zara. "That core wasn't some random experiment gone wrong. It was sabotaged with precision. Someone knew what they were doing." Zara nodded, her usually warm demeanor replaced by a determined edge. "We need to find out who, fast." ####A hidden conspiracy. The investigation started with the Whispering Woods. After stabilizing the mana core, Kieran had managed to download fragments of data from the crystal's energy patterns. It wasn't much, but it revealed traces of a foreign magic signature, one that didn't match any of the known schools of magic. "It's almost synthetic," Zara said as she analyzed the patterns with Kieran, "but magic like this shouldn't exist." "It does now," Kieran replied grimly, "and it's got someone's fingerprints all over it." Further clues emerged when Rylus reluctantly joined their team. His family, one of the oldest magical lineages, had access to forbidden archives. Though he initially resisted digging into his family's secrets, Rylus eventually uncovered an unsettling connection, an ancient cult known as the Nullborn. The Nullborn had been exiled centuries ago for their experiments in combining magic and anti-magic, practices deemed too dangerous and destabilizing, but according to Rylus's findings, they weren't gone, they'd simply gone underground. ###The Academy under siege. As Kieran, Zara, and Rylus pieced together the puzzle, the Nullborn made their move. Late one night, Arcana Celestialis was attacked by shadowy figures wielding weapons infused with anti-magic energy. Spells fizzled in their presence, and even Kieran's power armor struggled to hold up against their advanced technology. "All students, to the central spire," Headmistress Vera's voice boomed through the Academy's wards, her calm tone belying the chaos erupting across the grounds. Kieran and Zara fought side by side, a perfect blend of tech and magic. Zara used her enchanted staff to amplify Kieran's plasma bolts, while his armor's shields protected her from the Nullborn's nullifying attacks. "We need to stop them at the source," Kieran shouted, his voice distorted through his helmet. Zara pointed toward the horizon. "Their portal, it's in the courtyard." ###The portal. The courtyard was a battlefield. Nullborn operatives swarmed around a massive, shimmering portal, its edges crackling with unstable energy. Runes and tech intertwined to form its structure, a perfect blend of the two worlds. "This is how they're getting in," Zara said, dodging a blast of anti-magic energy. "Then we shut it down," Kieran replied, already scanning the portal's weak points. His HUD identified a central nexus, an unstable fusion core similar to the one in the Whispering Woods. But getting to it wasn't going to be easy. ###The final stand. The team fought their way through the Nullborn ranks. Rylus's fiery magic cleared paths, while Zara's enchantments provided critical support. Kieran took the brunt of the attacks, his armor holding steady even as sparks flew and warning lights flared. When they finally reached the portal, Kieran realized the core was more advanced than anything they'd encountered before. "This isn't just a portal, it's a weapon. If it detonates, it'll take the whole academy with it, and then some." "Can you disarm it?" Zara asked, her voice laced with urgency. "Not disarm, redirect." Kieran began reconfiguring his suit systems to interface with the portal's core. As he worked, the Nullborn leader emerged, a tall, hooded figure radiating both magic and anti-magic energy. Their voice echoed like thunder. "You meddle in forces beyond your comprehension. Step away, or face annihilation." Kieran didn't hesitate. "You first." ###The turning point. The Nullborn leader unleashed a devastating wave of anti-magic, but Zara and Rylus combined their powers to shield Kieran just long enough for him to finish his work. With a final command, his armor's core synchronized with the portal's energy signature. The portal began to collapse in on itself, sucking the Nullborn forces back through it. Kieran barely had time to disengage before the entire structure imploded, leaving behind only scorched earth and a faint hum of residual energy. ###Aftermath. The Nullborn attack left the academy shaken but intact. Many questions remained unanswered: where the Nullborn had gone, how they developed their hybrid tech magic weapons, and what their ultimate goal was. "Kieran, you've done more for us than we could have imagined," Headmistress Vera said, her usual stern expression softening. "But this fight isn't over. The Nullborn will return, and we'll need you, humanity, by our side." Kieran nodded. "And you'll have us, together. Magic and tech can handle whatever's coming." As the academy began to rebuild, Kieran and Zara resumed their work, determined to uncover the truth about the Nullborn and prepare for the battles yet to come.